Welcome to World History Channel. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. In popular imagination, Victoria often stands alone, her childhood portrayed as lonely and bereft of companions. But did you know that Victoria grew up at Kensington Palace alongside her older half-sister? Let's look at the relationship of Queen Victoria with her sister, Princess Feodora. As a young child, the future Queen Victoria often walked in Kensington Gardens, wishing onlookers a cheerful good morning. The little princess was never permitted to be alone for an instant. During these walks, her mother Victoire, the Duchess of Kent, held one of her hands. Victoria's older half-sister, Princess Feodora, held the other hand. The trio became a familiar sight near Kensington Palace and were described by one observer as a group of exquisite loveliness. While Victoria had a difficult relationship with her mother, she remained close to Feodora throughout her life. Victoria and Feodora corresponded with one another for decades and provided each other with advice and emotional support. Feodora faded into obscurity after her death, but has attracted renewed interest in recent years because of her portrayals in historical novels and television series. Princess Anna Feodora Augusta. Charlotte Wilhelmina of Leiningen was born in Amorbach in Bavaria, Germany in 1807, the second child of Princess Victoire of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld and Emich Karl, Prince of Leiningen. Feodora and her older brother, also named Karl, spent their early childhood with their mother and maternal grandmother, the Dowager Duchess Augusta of Saxe-Coburg, while their father fought in the Napoleonic Wars. Augusta wrote that Feodora is a charming little clown who already shows grace in every movement of her small body. Emich Karl died in 1814. 4 years later, Victoire remarried to Prince Edward, Duke of Kent and Strathearn, the fourth son of King George III. While her son Karl remained in Leiningen to complete his education, Feodora accompanied her mother and new stepfather to Britain. The Duke of Kent enjoyed the company of children and treated Karl and Feodora as his own. Feodora later wrote to Victoria, "I loved our father. I loved him dearly," and mourned his death in 1820. Like Victoria, Feodora resented being isolated at Kensington Palace during her youth by the widowed Duchess of Kent and her financial advisor, John Conroy. She wrote to Victoria decades later, "When I look back upon those years, which ought to have been the happiest in my life, from 14 to 20, I cannot help pitying myself. Not to have enjoyed the pleasure of youth is nothing, but to have been deprived of all intercourse and not one cheerful thought in that dismal existence of ours was very hard. I escaped some years of imprisonment, which you, my poor darling sister, had to endure after I was married." Feodora shared Victoria's dislike of Conroy and encouraged Victoria's efforts to assume greater independence from their mother's control as she grew older, in contrast with their brother Karl, who favored an extended regency by the Duchess of Kent. As the half-sister of the heiress presumptive to the British throne, Feodora's marriage prospects were a subject of popular interest, and there were even rumors that Victoria's uncle, the aging King George IV, was interested in marrying her in the hope of fathering a direct heir of his own. Feodora's marriage was ultimately arranged with the assistance of Adelaide, Duchess of Clarence, who was herself consort to another one of Victoria's uncles, the future King William IV. Adelaide's cousin was Prince Ernst of Hohenlohe-Langenburg. Although Ernst and Feodora only met twice before their engagement, and Ernst had little income as his principality had been absorbed into the Kingdom of Württemberg in 1806. Feodora was eager to be married and leave Kensington Palace. Feodora and Ernst had 6 children, and their present-day descendants include King Karl XVI of Sweden and King Felipe VI of Spain. One of their sons, Victor, married a British aristocrat, and his children remained close to Queen Victoria's children and grandchildren, and frequently attended British royal events into the 20th century. Victoria and Feodora corresponded regularly throughout their lives, turning to one another for advice and support. As Feodora's biographer Harold A. Albert observed, she reasoned with Victoria, argued with her, persuaded her, and occasionally quarreled with her. As Feodora was based in Germany, she could keep Victoria informed about events in continental Europe. The two sisters frequently discussed marriage and motherhood in their correspondence as well. Both Feodora and Victoria valued their marriages over their children. Feodora wrote on the 12th of December 1841, "I do most fully participate in your opinion that, with all the love for one's children, it is not to be compared with that for a husband. Of Victoria's marriage, she wrote, "How much more happy your felicity with dearest Albert makes me, I cannot tell you." As the mother of 6, Feodora frequently advised Victoria on parenting and reassured her about those times when children are very difficult to manage. In contrast to Victoria, however, Feodora did not expect exemplary behavior from children at all times. When Victoria complained that her son, the future Edward VII, was playing pranks on his younger siblings and expressed concern that he was particularly badly behaved, Feodora wrote on the 16th of March, 1844, "Believe me, dearest Victoria, all children are nearly the same at that age. They are always at some mischief with the little ones, without being really ill-natured, some more, some less. I think the best way is to speak kindly to them about it in the moment, and not always punish them for every trick." Feodora visited Britain on numerous occasions during Victoria's reign, attending the Queen's coronation in 1838 and spending an extended period at the British court in 1848 following the political upheaval in Europe. Victoria and Albert named their youngest daughter Beatrice Mary Victoria Feodora in Feodora's honor. Victoria and Feodora were widowed around the same time, as Ernst died in 1860 and Albert died in 1861. Victoria hoped they might live together as widows in Britain. Although she was sympathetic to Victoria's circumstances, Feodora valued her autonomy and decided to remain in Germany, writing on the 16th September 1862, "I cannot give up my house nor my independence at my age." In 1872, Feodora's youngest daughter died of scarlet fever. Feodora was devastated, writing, "I wish that my lord would be pleased to let me soon depart," and in fact, her own health declined quickly. She died on the 23rd of September, the cause of death believed by the attending physician to be cancer. Queen Victoria was saddened by the news, writing in her journal, "My own darling only sister, my dear, excellent, noble Feodora is no more. I stand so alone now, no near and dear one near my own age or older, to whom I could look up, left, all gone. She was my last near relative on an equality with me, the last link with my childhood and youth.